You ready, George? All right, George. Welcome to the Strand Tennis Center podcast, everybody. I'm Steve Kappa. I'm your host. George, I've learned the worst phrase in the English language over my years of teaching, George. The worst phrase in the English language is not anything derogatory. It's not anything that you have to bleep, George. The worst phrase that you can say in the English language to me, and this is going to be short, but I don't know, maybe it'll be longer. It's I know. It drives me insane, George. The phrase I know comes with all of this stuff. It because we're in a, okay, so make it specific to us. We're in a teaching facility, George. We're here to help people learn. So they're here to learn something that they necessarily don't know. And many times as a teacher, you go and you teach and you begin to communicate something that, that needs to be corrected or something needs to be worked on. And the default phrase is I know. And there's many times when you're like, well, then why are you here if you know? And now people think it's just a default phrase, but you got to be careful about your default phrases, I know, saying that I agree. Change the language and you'll change your behavior. Saying I know doesn't really process your brain. There's probably some neurochemistry in it that you're not really learning. The key is you really don't know anything, and that's why you're here. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem is people come to classes, and it's anywhere, and it could be, and it's even employees, anything. If you keep saying the word I know, the less you know, the less you understand. I mean, there's no humility in the phrase I know. I mean, there's 1,000 times when you say something to somebody, and it's just the same thing. You can see they're not processing it. They're just saying I know. They're there not to learn. So if you come into a situation and you're not here to learn, there's no reason for you to be a part of the situation. Like, everybody's different, but I guarantee you all those people saying I know will get so much more out of life if they just say I don't know and thank you for the information. Because that's how I go through my life. I don't know mostly anything, George. I know maybe one or two things, and I'm still learning those. And I don't think I've ever said that phrase that I know. I just don't. I just don't think I'm very intelligent, George. I don't know, man. But it's a phrase that I think everyone should lose out of the vocabulary because it doesn't help you any. It really doesn't. Even if you do know, you should say, could you clarify that? And you'll probably learn something new. Say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I knew that part, but I didn't know that part of it. Could you give me a little bit more information? Really, the goal is to just be a little bit smarter at the end of the day than you were in the beginning of the day. And if you use the phrase I know, it's really harder to be smarter at the end of the day. That's all. That's my only goal for everybody here, is to be a little bit smarter than they are in the morning than they are after, or a little smarter after the class than they took it. And it could be something really small. It could be something that you don't even realize you transmitted. But if you're not open to learning it, and me too, if I'm teaching, I have to be open to learning the new ways of teaching and how people relate to it. And you get feedback all the time. It's always hard to take. It's not easy to take. But if I don't open myself up to saying, well, I don't know anything, I don't know everything about teaching, I need to know more, listen to the feedback from the people I'm giving the lesson to, I'll learn a ton. So really, I think everybody should take that phrase and throw it out and throw it in the garbage, because it really doesn't help. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help anybody. I wish we could kind of just say I don't know. And again, the goal is to be smarter at the end of the day than at the beginning of the day. And it doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit of time to being open. I don't know. Even the phrase, George, when you hear it, I don't know, you say I know, it just kind of cuts you off from communicating with the person because you can't say anymore. It's kind of a sentence finisher. So the key is dialogue. You want to communicate with someone, and you want them to keep on communicating with you. So try not to use the phrase. It's really helpful if you just say, I don't know, and can you clarify and give me more information? That's all I had, George. You have any experience with I don't know, George, or I know?
I know, I feel like always comes from a place of frustration.
Yeah, okay.
I try to use you're right.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. It's a good point. Okay, openness. Humility, George. I'm humble, George. Every day running a business, you have to be humble, George. If you're not, it's going to be big trouble. Because, I know this is a great. I just listened to the podcast, The Knowledge Project, if you know it. It's really good with John Mackey, the owner of Whole Foods, who sold it to Amazon. Fascinating podcast. You should listen to it. Talk about learning. I mean, the guy started a store called The Safer Way, went out of business, went to zero, and it was amazing how he was learning because he's a vegan, right? We're going off on this, but he was a vegan. Sold no animal products in the beginning, nothing. All vegan stuff, and he went out of business. And he said, the market told me, right? He could have said, I know more than anybody else. We're all going to go vegan because the market wasn't ready for it. It was a 1% vegetarian, 1% vegan in the country, or 2%, 2 or 3% vegetarian. We went out of business. I found a new store. We opened Whole Foods. I raised some money, and we added meat. We added this, we added that, and we took off. Imagine if he just said, I know better than everybody else. I don't care. He would have never had Whole Foods. He would have gone bankrupt and said, I'm not opening a new store. People are stupid. You can't do that, right? You have to listen to people. You can't say, I know as a boss. You can't say, I know more than anybody else. As the student, you can't say that either. It never would have happened. I mean, you get in many situations, and then he's been through everything. They opened up their first store, was super successful, and there are guys like in Austin, this is a 100-year flood zone. Because when there was the last time there was a flood? About 70 years ago. Because, but you're probably okay. He flooded out in 9 months, and it was 8 feet of water in there, and he had to start all over again. So adversity, oh my God, we can talk. I mean, I just read about all the adversity, how people go through, but you got to listen to people, and you got to take feedback. And if you don't, you just become a tyrant. You can't do that. So listen to feedback, and don't say I know. Thanks, George. Hey, everybody. Hope you like the podcast. Please share it with your friends, anybody that you know, anybody that's into tennis, anybody that's into bettering themselves. Share it.